Hello, delegates. Hello. Hi. Welcome back. Welcome back. Come and take your seats as quickly as you can, please. Welcome back to those who are joining us online.
Oh, okay.
It's lovely to have your company online, wherever you are with us, wherever you are. Indeed, maybe you in your office, your home, wherever it is. It's lovely to have you. So thank you very much for being with us online today. Those in the room, if you could just find your seats as quickly as you can for me, and we will get started with our next session. And a quick show of hands while we are just settling down. Who managed to do the seed planting exercise? Brilliant. A gentleman's hand went up, so you can be very proud of your seed, I can tell. Which one? You work on seeds, and he has done the seed planting exercise. You see, you cannot keep anyone who works with the land away from seeds. It is not possible. If you haven't done the seed planting exercise yet, there will be another chance later this afternoon. Not in the lunch break, but later this afternoon. You can have a go at that and take your seed back with you. Well, from something very much of the land to something now that works with the land and is regarded by many people as something that will help the future. We're talking about innovation, but we're talking about data and research and how we bring everything like that together to help this sector thrive when it comes to all the challenges that are there and standing in its way. How do you capitalize on those opportunities that are being presented with this new world of research and innovation and data and how all of this comes together? We have got some fabulous examples from the field as well coming up for you. Some really great inspirational ideas and thoughts to give you some thoughts about what is happening right here, right now. And this is the place to discuss. So, delegates, please join me in welcoming your next moderator to take you through this discussion. Please welcome Thomsen Bros.
Hello, everybody. And as you've just heard, we're going to be exploring these questions of research, data and innovation, which are so critical to the future of farming in the agro-food environment. So I'm going to do a Slido poll first, and as you're filling in the Slido poll, which is going to create a word cloud, I will bring my speakers up. But let me launch that, and you should be able to see on the screen, we're going to show you the QR code so that we can have that question, because we want to get a message from you, what should be the priorities that we should be looking at. So let's see if we can, there we go. There's the QR code for Slido, and we're going to build a word cloud from your responses. And we need to find out from you what you think should be the priorities for looking at research, innovation, and data for greater resilience and food security. So while that's building, I'm going to bring up our speakers for this. And I'm delighted to introduce first Lucie Monticelli, who's a researcher turned entrepreneur. And she's going to tell us a little bit about her story. And it's really quite an unusual story in the sense that most of the time when we think of researchers, we think of them sitting in the labs behind their desks, looking at things from a very academic perspective. But Lucie's going to tell us how she transformed right the way through into an entrepreneur, taking her research and actually transforming it. So Lucie, please go ahead and make your presentation. Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if I will have my slides. Okay, right.
They're coming.
No. Sorry?
Maybe just introduce yourself while we're waiting for the PowerPoint to arrive. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'm Lucie Monticelli, and a few years ago, I was a researcher working on agricultural pests. But today, I'm the CTO and the co-founder of my own company, which is called Evolutive Agronomy, with Antoine Pasquier. And we are at the industrial phase. So what I would like to present today is my journey, behind this transformation from a researcher to an entrepreneur and to build step by step, we hope, many as possible solutions for agricultural European farmers. So, how it starts? In 2021, we meet each other with Antoine at the French National Institute of Research, where we did our PhD, and we used to have a lot of debate about how we can increase the efficacy of biological control program. And one day, he just came to me and asked me, what if we created a startup together? And I was like, no, no way. It was not at all in my plan. I wanted to make an academic research career. I think I was born for that. But then it took me 6 months. So I think about that, and finally I was like, okay, this is a great idea because it's the best way to ensure that the project we are doing in the lab reach the field, reach the farmer. And so finally I said yes. And sometimes I will think about that and I'm, wow, how can I say yes at that moment? Because I was really stressed. I know nothing about entrepreneurship. So I was really unfamiliar with that, and it was difficult for me to just move to this hidden world. And so we didn't start in the lab. Actually, we start in the field. We just go to interview many farmers and ask them what are the main pests they have in their soil. Okay? And why the soil? Just because it's actually a really complex and hidden world, so there is much less solution proposed to fight against pests, soil pests, and it's quite easy to understand. Like, for example, an aphid, you have a ladybug eating the aphids. Okay, great. The ladybug could be a good biological control agent, but actually in the soil, you don't know who is eating whom. So it's totally an hidden world, and it's why we wanted to take this opportunity to create new product and help farmers with those problems. And so what was the answer, actually, of those farmers? It was the root knot nematode. I don't know if you know this pest, but actually it's a small worm that enters into the roots and consumes the plants from the inside. And so then you can have multiple billions yield loss every year through the world. So it was our starting point. We just have an idea. Just to let you know, in the soil, what happened actually, like the mites the predatory mites are at the top of the food chain, okay? So it's like the lions in the savannah, okay? And so we have to find the good species that will be able to consume the nematodes. And so we came back in the lab at the French National Institute of Research in Agronomy in Hidén, where we tried different species, and we found actually a predatory mite species that are able to eat 1,000 nematodes per day, which is a great news. And it was founded by, by the local university, Université Côte d'Azur, and by our local region, the Région Sud, so the Sun region of France. And so we patented. In 2023, actually, everything accelerates, okay? Because we have the lab proof of concept. But it was also the most difficult part for us because it's still really risky for an investor to found this kind of startup because it's too early. We don't have field trials. So without any public support, we cannot go ahead. And so at the same time, I tried to learn a lot about entrepreneurship. So we got iPhD contest, which is a test that enables you to progress. So just what is a business model, how to create a business model, how to pitch a deck for investors, all those questions that I had no the answer before. And so we succeed because we got a French government funding, which is called iLab. And we make field trials. And as you can see, the results were really great. Here it's crop cucumber crop, where we were able to increase the time of the cultivation and the yield. So it was really beneficial for our farmers, and we proved that for the multiple crop and in multiple years. So it was also in 2023, the years we created the company, so a big step. We are not anymore in the lab, we are now a real entity, and it's also the year we developed our first decision support system. I will explain you what is his role. Actually, the biological control program, I don't know if you know that, but like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. And so it's complicated to understand. But one of the main points is because we are working with living organisms. So we have to take into account the ecological factor in the introduced area to enable to just provide the good recommendation for the farmers to use properly the biological control agent. And it's exactly what we did. We create a mathematical model that enabled to take all these ecological factors, such as temperature, the soil type, the product used by farmer, to enable to provide the optimized density, frequency, and introduction date of this biological control agent to ensure the efficacy of the biological control program. And this was also patented. And so then in 2025, so this year, our mindset changed again, because it's not anymore how it can work, it's more like how we can scale our solution, okay? And so we have to invest a lot in our R&D, firstly, to propose a new predatory mite-based product, so to increase the pest we are targeting with our solution. And also, we have to invest in our automation and mechanization of our production to enable to reduce the price and to target more and more farmers. And so for that, we got funding again from the French government, thanks to the French government, and also, and we just closed last week fundraising of 1 million euros, so thanks to the investor too, and they are really, thank you very much. Oh. And we are really, really happy with that, because we have investors that are specialized in agricultural domain, and actually they already provide us great advice, and we are sure we will go far because of them. So, and so now it's like the new phase, because it's everything I don't know before. It's like hiring the first sales teams, okay, like completely not research anymore. And we are also like defining the commercial strategy. So it's a new world for us. But since we make research, it means that we can learn everything. So actually, all what I did until now is just how to learn things. And it works. I was totally scared in 2021. Today, I know a lot of things that enable me to be less scared and to just go ahead. So you can all do that if you want. So finally, as you can see, it's just not a professional evolution. It's a deep transformation from researcher to entrepreneur, and we hope soon an industrial leader in the soil biocontrol. So just believe on our researcher, and we can make great things. So if you have any question, thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much, Lucie. That was really interesting. Do take a seat on the end of our panel, because we'll have you here to bring in some more of those mindset changes. And it was really interesting to hear a little bit more about when the first question came to you, do you want to start a company? How that was, not really quite sure about that. And yet here we are talking about raising funds and hiring salespeople. So it's really interesting to accompany your journey with that. And you've also taught us a little bit about mites. I can tell you I've used nematodes to try and control vine weevils, and now I'm hearing that actually we need to control the nematodes. So I've learned something.
But it's not the same.
Different nematodes.
Yeah.
Soil is complex.
Plenty of nematode types.
Excellent, thank you. Let me invite the other members of my panel to come up and help us understand that. So Diego Canga Fano, please come up and join me, Acting Deputy Director-General for FHI and the Director for Outreach Research and Geographical Indications for the European Commission. Hello and welcome.
Hello, hello.
Miss Elisabeth Hidén, the Vice President of the European Council for Young Farmers, and I have mismatched your name because you gave it to me earlier. It's Hidén.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Please come and join me. Mr. Bjarne Thomsen, Special Consultant and Danish Representative in the Standing Committee on Agricultural Research, also known as SCAR, and the Danish Agency for Green Transition in the Aquatic Environment. Please come and join me. And Michiel Scheffer, the Board President for the European Innovation Council. Please come and join me.
Thank you.
Now, I asked you a question on Slido, and I'd love to see, let's see the word cloud that was produced, because we asked you what should the EU and member states focus on to further boost innovation in agriculture, forestry, and rural areas. And we've got a word cloud that's been produced, and we'll see it in a moment on the screen. But right in the middle, we've got these issues of sustainability, multi-actors knowledge transfer, soil quality, alternative proteins. We've got some of the issues there as well, looking at deregulation, looking at livestock, science-based solutions. So lots of ideas that were coming there, but sustainability is sitting right in the heart of your message to say that's where we need to be building our priorities on innovation. So I think that's a really good way for me to pass the floor to Diego to give us a little context for our conversation. Diego, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, thank you. As Lucie has just shown us vividly, innovation is a journey challenging at times, yes, but above all, full of opportunities. And as Jean Monnet reminded us, the only way to make people enthusiastic about the future is to help them to build it. And today, we are precisely to build that future together. Innovation is a risky business, one that often requires a strategic vision, targeted public support, and enabling policy framework. With the publication of the Vision for Agriculture and Food, we have taken a major step forward. We now have a shared European compass for an agri-food system that is attractive, competitive, sustainable, and fair for current and future generations. Research, innovation, knowledge, and digitalization are our strongest enablers to reach the vision's objectives. And the European Union is already making unprecedented research and innovation investments. Under Horizon Europe, DG Agri alone is programming around 3 billion euros for research and in agriculture, forestry, and rural areas. And these investments are not abstract. They are already delivering concrete results. So let me share just a few examples. We are financing technologies that monitor polluted soils and help restore them. Smart tools that optimize the use of every drop of water. Portable sensors that improve on-farm wastewater treatment. Decision support tools for better nutrition management, bio-based fertilizers produced from underused agri-food waste, and new business models to strengthen farmers' bargaining power. All those examples are success stories of EU-funded projects that demonstrate the huge potential of European innovators. I think it's fair to say that we are delivering. Of course, we can always do better, but we are really delivering on what we are doing. In the past years, we have also innovated and reshaped our way of working. We intensify our partnership with public and private actors. We work with member states under 4 co-funded partnerships. We work with industries in joint undertakings on bioeconomy, which was mentioned this morning, with the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, with the European Innovation Council, with the Food and Agriculture Organization, and with philanthropic organizations, for example, like the Novo Nordisk Foundation, especially for the mission soil. As we firmly believe that solutions developed with farmers are solutions that work in practice, with farmers. We have brought farmers to the center of the innovation process through the multi-actor approach. And we have also boosted the use of real-life experimentation sites, we call it living labs, under the Mission Soil and Agroecology Partnership. They are becoming vibrant hubs where new ideas are tested, adapted, and shared across the European Union. Outside this room, or exhibition area, shows some of these achievements. So I invite you all to take a moment to see what European innovation community is creating with the EU support. It's a real source of inspiration. And you can also explore many of these results online through the new EU Farm Book platform, which brings together practical knowledge and solutions for farmers across Europe. And I am delighted to say that its official launch will take place tomorrow, 16 December. You may ask, What has guided all these developments in Horizon Europe and before? Our progress is built on a strategy. Since 2016, we have had an EU strategy approach for research in agriculture. It serves us well, but today's challenges and opportunities demand a new level of ambition. We now need a future-proof EU agri-food through a renewed strategic approach that will define R&I priorities to meet the ambition of the Vision for Agriculture and Food, the bioeconomy strategy, and the life sciences strategy. To succeed, we need a strong innovation ecosystem, one that not only generates ideas, but deploys, scales, and mainstream them across all actors in the agri-food system. In doing so, we should build on what works well today, the EIP agri model, and the synergies between CAP and Horizon Europe. Today's event marks the kickoff of an exciting process of reflection. By mid-2026, we aim to deliver a renewed EU R&I strategy approach for agriculture, forestry, and rural areas. And this comes at the right moment, because the proposal for the next multi-annual financial framework gives us remarkable opportunities. The proposed European Competitiveness Fund, 234 billion euros, and the Horizon Europe, 175 billion euros, together define a powerful engine for Europe's competitiveness in strategic sectors. And agriculture is one of them, because under policy window 2, 40 billion, 40, will support health, biotech, agriculture, and the bioeconomy, bringing competitiveness and research together in a seamless pathway from idea to market. This is exactly what Europe needs to accelerate the uptake of innovation. So let me reflect for a moment. I hear sometimes people commenting about the MFF. I hear very little commenting about research on the MFF. There's a bit of silo mentality in the agri. And I want you to know that we might have much more money in the future for agriculture. I don't know how the 40 billion euro will be spent between health, biotech, agriculture, and bioeconomy. I don't know. But I do know is that today we run 3 billion euros, and we have to make a repetition of 40 billion euros. So we might in the future confronted with an amazing opportunity of investing in agricultural research and bioeconomy. And today's conference precisely would be helpful to get ideas how to use that money if we get that extra money. Let me conclude by saying that European farmers, researchers, innovators, and rural communities have enormous strength. When they are given the right support, they deliver beyond expectations. And our role is clear, to give them the vision, the tools, and the confidence to shape a thriving future. And together we can turn challenges into opportunities and opportunities into success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diego. I'm now going to come to members of our panel. Elisabeth, I'm going to start with you from a point of view of young farmers' perspective, because farmers can have two potential roles in the innovation cycle, both as the initiators trying out new things, but also as the adopters of new innovations as they come in. But do you see farmers as having all the tools that they need to be both businesses that develop innovations and key players in the innovation process and the users of innovations? And I was very much struck by Lucie's presentation where she said, well, we had to get things patented. That's a whole kind of legal area that needs to be dealt with. Then she had to do fundraising. That's another whole sort of environment to get to grips with. So for young farmers, do you see farmers as having all the tools they need to operate through that?
I mean, first of all, I think we need to recognize farmers as innovators, both as co-developers, but also as users. Every day we use it as for sustainability practice, for production methods. We use new digital solutions on the farms. And it's also quite unique context. Each farm is a unique context. And of course, it's not only about using this technology, it's also about doing business management. You need to take decisions of your farm based on economy and your time and your opportunities. And you talked about the Horizon Europe, which we in CEJA strongly support. It's a very good example where you connect farmers, researchers, and also the financial world. And I think therefore you can get really good examples of practices. I think also that it's important that young farmers are in those projects from the start, and you need to put support for young farmers in the project budgets. Because sometimes I know I'm invited to meetings and I say, oh, it's so hard to find farmers to be interested in those projects. No, I think that farmers would love to be in the projects, but if you're not getting compensated for leaving your farm, it's not sure that you actually are able to leave your farm. And all the other people in that room are paid by someone. So I think it's quite important that we see farmers as professional people with a lot of knowledge that is useful, so actually pay them fair. I was a part of a Cucuriado project, all by CEJA, and I think this is a very good example where you see what's happened when you give farmers the right tools and opportunities to work with innovation themselves, and it gets very farmer-friendly results. I think it's also, innovation is not only about technology, it's also about knowledge and being able to share your experience with other people. So I think we need tailored advisory service, especially for young farmers. Maybe we need network, we need to be able to share our experience. And you asked me about if farmers have everything they need. I think farmers have the knowledge, they have the ideas, they have the willingness to do this stuff, but without internet service, for example, in some countries, without access to finance, it's quite hard to make those innovations to real tools on farms. So I think we need some more tools to work with. But yeah, I see farmers both as innovators and co-developers of new innovation.
Great, thank you. Bjarne, let me invite you to reflect a little bit on where member states sit within that sort of EU ecosystem looking at research and development, because Denmark is very engaged in Horizon Europe co-funded partnerships, and of course you're a member of the Standing Committee SCAR. How do you see what member states do? How do they fit within this? Because we're talking about that whole innovation cycle from ideas, labs, research, right down to Elisabeth's farm, actually testing out and using that and providing necessary feedback in the sort of knowledge loop to researchers so they can understand how useful their research has been. So what's the role of national authorities?
I think the national authorities actually have a great role. We shouldn't forget that about, 80-90% of all the spending on agricultural research is done nationally. All the farmers are based in the member states, so they have to be in the center part here. So the national has quite a big role to play, and also in getting all these instruments to play together in the national strategies, in the national plans, get the right coordination and complementarity between the instruments. And also those where, in Denmark, for example, we don't use all the tools available for us under the CAP today, but we have national systems basically doing the same role to get that whole chain from research out to the actual farm to get that working.
Great, thank you. Michiel, let me invite you to come in, because we heard from Lucie, it's not a simple road from a research idea to actually having a product that you can put in people's hands. And we clearly need to provide support along that journey to deal with some of the risks that are inherent to innovation. And particularly I'm thinking about startups, SMEs, people who are really at the beginning of their journey. So, where do you see the role of the European Innovation Council in helping business creation really at that very starting point before something gets going?
Well, on average, the EIC helps startups that are now in a state of Lucia. So basically, 5 to 7 years after foundation, they have exhausted the national funding mechanism. They have to roll out on the European level, and we offer basically the support to do that rolling out. So we are not, let's say, for the really early ones. We are, let's say, for those who are slightly further ahead, have a proof of concept, but have to roll out. And the themes where Lucia's in, and also the themes that were on the Slido, are also the themes that we fund a lot. So protein transition, soil quality, CO2 lower emitting agriculture, bio-based packaging, but also bio-based materials and bio-based energy. So it's Agri-Food Days today, but it's also, agro is more than food alone. It's also securing materials and energy independence. So let's not forget that. Just one final point, what is quite essential for us and difficult is that we do a lot of work also to connect startups to larger corporations. So for example, I was 4 weeks ago with Bayer Crop Science, but that logic doesn't apply entirely in the agriculture where you have a very fragmented landscape. So the biggest challenge I see for innovators is how do you reach the millions of farmers in Europe? And that is something that we have to work at European level better on, with member states better on, and also, let's say, in startup hubs better on, to, let's say, assure that the innovators can reach out, let's say, to a European landscape of users.
Excellent, thank you. So just to let you know, everyone, I've got another set of questions from my panel, and then I will be opening the floor to you. So we'll be showing you the Slido QR code, and we'll be collecting questions from the online audience, and I will also open the floor to you here with the old-fashioned hands up. So please be ready when you've got questions to this panel. So what we're going to now look at is we're going to be thinking about the multi-annual financial framework. It's already been mentioned in the earlier session, so we know it's a big topic. But what I want us to focus on specifically here is the European Competitiveness Fund and how that could be used. And Diego mentioned there's potentially quite a lot of money in there. We just don't know how much will go to agriculture, the bioeconomy, health, but these are all interrelated issues. So there's potentially a lot of opportunity there, but how could we make sure that that's actually targeted to making sure the innovations effectively reach the market? As you said, Michiel, is, you know, how do you reach out to those consumers who are millions of farmers across Europe who could use these things, and making sure that we match farmers' needs. Bjarne, I'm going to start with you on this one. Obviously, you said 90% of all funding and support happens at national level with farmers who, of course, work with their national counterpoints. We've got this potential, the new European Competitiveness Fund through the MFF. How do we make sure that it is a useful tool for actually meeting those needs?
Well, first and foremost, actively involve the farmers in the whole process, in all the programs, and have their input to how they actually see their needs and what can cater for that. And also, I think we will have to need to get the consumers inside that one, and to get the dialogue going, actually.
Okay, so we need to keep that loop going and looking at sort of the dialogue, particularly with consumers, and consumers having, in fact, two meanings here. We're talking about the consumers and participants in the innovation, which might be the farmers, but also the people beyond that, the consumer demand, the people who are actually buying food, who start asking for and helping to drive that demand. Yeah. So thank you for that. Elisabeth, let me bring you in. I know it's a challenge for young farmers because you mentioned it in the first panel, you raised a question saying access to finance. We heard from Lucie support for things like the patenting process, the funding process, the sales process. What would you hope to see in this European Competitiveness Fund, which potentially has got more money that might be available for that research and innovation areas?
I really hope that in the future we need to see a budget that are in line with the ambitions of the policies. Right now, I talked before about the MFF, and we have like the generation toolbox in there, but if we don't have a budget, it will just stop to be a paper product. So I hope that we can fill this gap in the future, and I will come up with 3 examples where I see potential. The first is like on-farms investment. Here we can have investment, for example, when it comes to water management, the new irrigation system. That's super important to be able to handle the climate change, but also have competitiveness companies. We have the new technologies, and here, for example, we have good examples from precision farming, but also NGTs, who can handle more drought-resistant crops, for example. And today we have some of this new technology already on the market, but young farmers do not have the opportunities to actually benefit from this because we don't have the money to be able to invest. And then, of course, as I also mentioned before, the knowledge part. I think we need tailored advisory services. We need groups to help young farmers to share knowledge, what crop to grow, how to make the best decision in your company. So I think there are a lot of potential, and of course, if we can make the ECF covering this gap, I think we have a huge potential for young farmers being able to take a part more in the innovation in the future, which is necessary both to the climate change, but also for the competitiveness of the companies.
Thank you. And I wonder if you can also maybe comment on, you spoke, it came up in the earlier panel about the sort of gender differences, that, you know, there aren't that many young female farmers, and the young female farmers that we have are often not necessarily the owners of the land, which makes it then hard to make investment decisions and try out new things, take the risks needed because they don't have the support. Do you want to just make a comment as a young female farmer yourself? And Lucie, feel free to come in on this. How, when you were looking out for money, you know, how were you seen as a young female entrepreneur in the agricultural area? But Elisabeth, let me start with you.
Yes, of course, we know by numbers that only 17% of the land are owned by women in Europe. And when you go to the bank and you do an investment, and the farming, it's huge amounts of money. We know, like buying a farm is 3 million euros, stuff like that. Buying cows could be 600,000 euros. And then they ask, okay, so what's your security? What can we have from you if this doesn't work? Do you have the land? Because of course the land is the best security for a bank. And if you only have 17% on the land as women in Europe, of course you have a problem there. And then you have hard to be able to developing the farm. You are able to take loans, so hard to take loans. So I think it's we need to talk more about this. And we also know the Commission mentioned before that it's harder for women to get loans. So I think it's also we need to see attitude change from the banks. We need more knowledge about this and start to talk about it. And I think it has been a big change the last years just to talk about more gender equality and the women's opportunities on rural areas. So I think it's, I'm very glad that we are talking about this, and I think it's just a start.
Thank you. Lucie, I mean, we're specifically here talking about, you know, how the sort of research elements within the Competitiveness Fund, etc., could support. But, and that's your area, having been in the academic environment. How much support was there within that for the kinds of steps you needed to take as a young entrepreneur?
So I think there is different, there is big difference, I think, between male and female in like managing money, actually, because for example, with the fundraising, okay, right? So you have to propose a business plan, and then the investor will say, okay, I will have profit or not. And it's like that they take decision. But what happens is, like, generally when a man do a business model, it's like they are really ambitious, okay? They prove that we will do many, many millions euros or whatever. And so what investor done is like just cut off by 2 the business plan and said, okay, it's probably what they will do. But as a woman, I'm quite more like a realistic, I create more realistic business plan. So if they cut off by 2, I will never be founded, actually, because it's too low for them. But actually, I can almost prove that I can do it. It's a generality. Let's say that in our case, it was exactly that. So I think there is this vision too, like where my friends that also make entrepreneurship, women that make entrepreneurship, they all the time, all the time they said you are not enough ambitious. But the market is here, and if we give it to a man, and actually it really works with our environment, then bam, yeah, you can do that. No way. But it's the way it works, and as there is like, I think it's like in France, it's like 2 or 3% only of the companies that are full funded by women that succeed to make a fundraising.
Yeah, much higher.
It's only 2%, and so there is 80% it's full funded by men. So it's because the system is like that, okay. And we are not able to just stick to this system.
Thank you. So, Michiel, I'm going to invite you to come in now from an innovation perspective. Now, you mentioned earlier that you're sort of the second stage, 5 to 7 years of maturity for a company that's often then benefited from the kinds of things that Bjarne has mentioned. That at member states, you've got that incubation stage and getting to start up. But we've heard from both Elisabeth and from Lucie that sometimes there's real gender differences in being able to access to funding, being taken seriously, being perhaps not having been as ambitious in your ideas. What can you give us as insight from what you see in the innovation area? And then particularly, this new European Competitiveness Fund, potentially we've got more money in there. How could we use it? How could we get it right into the hands of the innovators who want to make things happen?
Well, what is going to be quite crucial, the EIC basically covers the valley of death. So you end up here somewhere. And what is going to be challenging is whether the ECF can help to really scale up and to broaden. And for example, I often attend juries. We often fund the first factory. But for example, we had one company on soil quality. The first factory was funded. They came for the second one. I said, no. The second one is something where you need another fund for. Either the CAP, because you're in a different region, or you have to use the ECF when it comes, or the EIB when it comes. And for example, a good example is a company called Fibritech in Warsaw. They want to build sites to process agricultural waste for fibers. Well, those kind of plant equipment, that is typically, let's say, what should be for me in the ECF. One warning about the gender, the 2% is overall quite right. The EIC funds 18% women. So we are 9 times better than the average, far from 50%. But one of the reasons why we fund more female entrepreneurs is we want very sound, slightly defensive business plans. So the bluffers, they can go to the US. We want the sound one that are well rooted, and often female starters write more, let's say, secure, well structured plans.
Thank you. So that's really interesting to hear from you, that you fill that little niche between, the sort of care provided at member state level, and I'm sure Bjarne will tell us a little bit more about that. You're that next step with the 5 to 7 years, your first big fundraising, but the next level where you need to scale up, go to new markets, perhaps make more products. That's something where we would hope that the new European Competitiveness Fund could step in. It could be that next scale-up level, and it's really important that there are clear pathways that go from Bjarne's area to your area to the ECF, and I think that will be something perhaps, Diego, that we'll ask you to comment on that. In fact, yes, please, Diego.
Sorry, Jasmine, I cannot resist. I have to say something. In those conferences, normally people use time to criticize the Commission. So let me know that I have the floor addressed to you. Now it's my turn. And I want you to pay attention to the Commission proposal, but please pay attention to the full Commission proposal, and only partially. Because if you look at the full Commission proposal on the MFF, there is a huge opportunity on research and innovation. And when you mention that, people disconnect. They don't listen to me, because most of the people are interested only on the first pillar and on the second pillar. Big mistake. We are preparing a very important element for the future of research and innovation in agriculture. I don't know how much money we will get at the end of the day. I don't know. But what I do know is that 40 billion, it's a lot of money. And for me, what I would expect from you is ideas how to spend the money. For example, as a manager, I am concerned with something. I am concerned that today we have a lot of oversubscription, which is very good for me, because we have excellent projects, but it's demoralizing for the losers. Yeah. Because the success rate is only around 10%, which means that 90% of the applicants will fail.
And lost a lot of time.
So if we have more money, maybe, I don't know, maybe we could spend otherwise the money. If we were to have more money for agriculture and bioeconomy, maybe we could explore new things that we're not doing now. So that's the kind of thing that I want people to give feedback about it. Not only look, of course, you have to look to the first and the second pillar, but in addition to the first and please look at the entire Commission proposal. It's the same Commission proposal, the same 16th of July. So pay attention to this huge opportunity, because it's literally a very important asset that we might have in our hands.
Thank you. Lucie, go ahead. And after Lucie, I'm going to open the floor, so be ready with your questions. I see I've already got a couple in through Slido, but Lucie, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for saying that. For example, for EIC, maybe I make a mistake, but it's like less than 5% success rates. And so I have a question, like, is like the 10% are quite great project and just not finance, or is just because there is only 5% that are really nice? Because, yeah, it's a lot of projects that don't got funding, but that arrive to this step with a great innovation. So I have this question for you.
We have a reserve list by order, and when we exhaust the money, we have to stop financing because the money is simply exhausted because we have fantastic applications. So that's why I believe we may have an opportunity from 2028 onwards maybe to finance more. It remains to be seen, but I believe it's an opportunity.
Michiel, I know you wanted to speak, and then Bjarne, I'm going to come back to you because, you know, it sounds like a lot of money. We've got 40 billion for the Horizon Europe, but of course, the entire EU budget is just over 1% of all the money in Europe, most of which stays at national level. So I think this hot potato is saying we've got a lot of good ideas that come to Europe that can't be funded because the funds are small. You know, they need to come back down, perhaps, to the national level to be picked up and taken forward. But Michiel, please answer on this. You know, you can only fund 5%.
We can only fund 5% while we have far more projects that are good enough to fund.
Okay.
So it's a harsh process. And indeed, the EIC is proposed by the Commission to grow from 10 billion to around 34 billion. That will substantially improve the success rates. So that will help. It will also to increase a bit the budget per project because it has not been inflation corrected for a long time. But still, it's a very competitive program. However, I would also say that we fund substantially a lot of health projects. And although we have about 100 projects in agri-food, that's only 5% of the whole. So I would be very pleased if we would have more green projects, more agri-food projects. And we can do that partly by having a high success rate, but also by having more specific challenges that address agri-food and also agri-materials and agri-energy.
Thank you. So Bjarne, we've heard the consensus amongst the panels that there's actually no shortage of great ideas. There's no shortage of innovation potential. We seem to be sort of touching on the fact that we've got a lot of effort going into putting in these proposals, and there are many more good enough projects that aren't getting funded. Is that what you see also in Denmark? How do we fix this?
Yeah, yes, it is. In general, I would say about maybe only, well, we'll be a bit higher in the success rate, 20-30%, but that's most of it. Otherwise, you will have some areas, specific areas where I would say the capacity, the infrastructure is actually not in place, and
okay.
They can't take up more. So.
Thank you. As I promised, we're going to open the floor, and as I said, I've got some questions already in from Slido, but I'd like to see from people. Yeah, I've got a hand here. We could get the microphone here, and I've got a lady there. So let's take these first two questions. Go ahead, sir. Please let us know who you are.
Hello, everybody. My name is Radu Mihailov. I am president of Biotop Romania Cooperative, agricultural cooperative, and by fortune, since 2 months, I am vice president of Research and Innovation Working Party Copa-Cogeca. And I would like to underline that the academic environment that make a lot of research and help us to bring new technologies in the farm should be doubled by the feedback of the farm, the feedback of the cooperative, which must not be treated like an end user. It must be treated by a critical key player, because the feedback in innovation is much important to be refined, to have the iteration between all these things in order to improve and to conclude to a success to the project of innovation that we are looking for. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, please go ahead.
Hello. Thank you. I'm Simona Caselli. I'm here on behalf of Italian Lega Coop cooperatives, but I'm also president of a research center on animal production, which participates in a lot of projects from Horizon or also the AKIS system with a fair, good results, actually. I think there are lots of solutions, actually. And considering the title here, that is how this system can go towards the needs of the farmers, in my opinion, the point is that we have a lot of solutions, for example, on animal welfare, on soil treatment, or lots of things. But all these solutions to be brought to the reality of the farmer need to pass, in my opinion, through some organized form. For example, a producer organization, a consortium, a cooperative, because we have family farmers all around Europe. If we expect a single farmer, from single farmer to single farmer, to go on and reach the digitalization and the innovation and the precision farming everywhere, we don't go anywhere. So we need some tools for that, because I think the best news of this MFF, which I hate totally, but the good news is actually the research and the more money on research. But the point is, which are the tools then on the CAP or wherever in order to bring this solution to the majority of farmers quickly, because otherwise we lose competitiveness. This tool for digitalization, and I don't see anywhere, and I ask a question for this.
Excellent, thank you. So, a panel, we've got two inputs there. The first one was saying, okay, farmers are part of the innovation process, but they're not just the end point, they're not the dead end of the results. They have a lot of feedback to give back to early stage, to seed, to researchers. Here's what's happening, here's the results, here's how it's working, what else can we do? So Elisabeth, I'm going to invite you to reflect on that farm back into research loop, so that, and it's a way of also reducing the risk for farmers, so they've got a sense that, yes, we're going to test something out, but it will also then be potentially improved and more tailored to the needs of farmers. And we've also got an interesting questionnaire to say that we need some support for the intermediary organizations, because it's unrealistic to expect a small family farm sitting in Portugal to know about what the potential research innovations are that are out there and then to try and do it all alone. There needs to be a mechanism to roll it out, to communicate, to initiate things, to inform farmers. So we had two potential inputs, and I'm going to invite the panel all to respond on that. I think, Bjarne, perhaps you can speak a little bit about that second intervention, about the role of groupings, trade associations, cooperatives, etc. But Elisabeth, let's go to that first intervention about how farmers aren't the end point, they're part of a feedback loop.
I think, as I mentioned before, it's important that farmers are not only in the doing the feedback in the middle of the loop. I think it's important to have farmers from the start. I also think, like now we can see in Sweden at least, that the number of people that are applying for the farmer university are going down. I think that's a super bad trend. We need to change that, and I know it's the same in a lot of countries in Europe. So we need to have farmers and people with farming knowledge to be in those projects from the beginning. We need the researcher to be connected to the farming universities, to be doing innovations and research that actually are on farm level. And otherwise, I think it's maybe like the cooperative could be one solution. So I would say to the farmers to put back feedback to those where you feel like something didn't work. And then from my perspective, if I go very, very basic on farm, like we have robots for milking the cows, and if something doesn't work, we have a quite good dialogue with the service techniker that coming to a farm. So I think that, of course, you have like the daily connection with the salesman or the service people coming to your farm, but also to include farmers in the beginning of the process, and also make sure that you have people on the farming universities to have this in the future as well.
Thank you. Bjarne, would you like to respond on this sort of relationship with networks, cooperatives, and other sort of intermediary organizations?
Yes. Some of this we also see in the operational groups under the EIP. We see it with the living labs that is coming up the moment. But in general, the organization of the farmers, that is actually a quite central, or they play a central role, especially I think we have seen in Denmark, where you have a very strong tradition of organization, and you have actually today more or less the majority of the supply chain, the farmers themselves and the processing industries, they are farmer controlled. And they all of those are actually playing a part in this. Also the advisory services are farmer controlled. They're private, but farmer controlled.
Okay.
And that is very central, and I think we have to be very careful if we, from a government level, would be trying to create these things. It won't work.
Thank you. Let me see who else has some questions, and I've got some questions as well from the Slido mechanism. Is there anyone else who wants to intervene? If not, I would like to pick up a couple of questions from Slido. And the first one I want to bring up is about what we actually mean by innovation. And I think it's really easy to fall into the trap of thinking that innovation is kind of new machines or new products. And the question we've had is saying that innovation is often narrowly conceived as technology, but what about social innovation? That might be new ways of connecting farmers and consumers via short supply chain, maybe education and training in sort of local communities so they know more about what farming is and what it delivers. So there's lots of opportunities here, maybe things like sustainable public food procurement as a way of guaranteeing markets for smaller producers. So let me invite the panel to sort of help us to unpack that idea of innovation, to say that we need to have a very broad view of it, understanding that, you know, Lucie, you're in quite a brand new area, and if we sort of take in a narrow view of innovation, perhaps some of the things that you were looking at, which is nature-based solutions, might not be seen or understood as sort of a high-tech end of innovation. And Michiel, I see you're nodding on this. So panel, what do we think about that? That we need to be aware that innovation is also social. It's about bringing new communities in, maybe also, you know, connecting urban populations to rural environments. There's lots of different ways that we can look at it. So how would we address that, our understanding? Elisabeth, maybe you can also tell us about, you know, social innovation in the farming environment, what that means. So let's see what we can say.
I think what the Commission mentioned before about the farm relief service, it's not innovation in the way as technology. It's nothing new. They have it in Austria, they have it in Finland. But it would be a big innovation when it comes to the rural areas, because that would make farmers having vacation, for example. So it would really increase this social innovation. I think, as it says, the question, it's quite easy that you get stuck in the thought that innovation should be technology. But I think it's as much sharing knowledge, as I mentioned before, getting help with what crop you should choose for your farm. And also those new solutions, how to make farming more sustainable for the social sustainable for the farmers. Because I think that we're really lacking. I think in Europe we have very climate-friendly farming. We are doing high-quality products, but we also know that we need to work on the farmers' mental health. So I think we need to see more of those social innovations, and we need to recognize it as innovation as well.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else from the panel who might like to reflect on, you know, how we can look at innovation from a broader perspective? And I wonder if some of the points that came up in the first panel, looking about challenges of access to land ownership, so maybe looking at new ownership models, access to finance, so risk models. Let's try and explore a bigger idea of innovation. Bjarne?
Well, I think social innovation is quite important, and also some of those mentioned here, and possibly also you would be able to do what is called today crowdfunding and things like that. Maybe you can get that working. It's not exactly my field, so.
Okay, Michiel, let me invite you to, I mean, you mentioned that you can only fund about 10% of good projects that come in, so there's lots of other ones. When you look at innovation, and it's in the title of your organisation, European Innovation Council, so how is your definition, and would some of these elements that are put in here about social innovation, new connections, new relationships, new community building, is that considered innovation? Is it prioritised or not in the way that your organisation looks at it?
Well, we have a very narrow definition of innovation because it should be so-called deep tech. So basically it should be patent-based. So that is not entirely, let's say, compatible with a more social view of innovation. And to be very blunt, if we would have done that, the success rate would be 2%. And so by broadening the definition and by broadening the funding, you don't create more satisfaction. There's also a downside to the benefit of enlarging the definition. To be very frank, I'm myself a shareholder in a social farm, and I love it. I go every Saturday morning, but I don't see why they would need €2.5 million EIC funding. I mean, the vegetables grow very well on themselves, and the volunteers come to work on the farm as well. So not everything needs, let's say, a very strong financial support. It also social innovation also requires other things than financial innovation. So let's not try to mingle everything, making it more complicated already than it is.
Thank you. Just a quick time warning. We've got 3 minutes left in our panel, but please go ahead, Elisabeth.
Yes, just a very short. I think when it comes to innovation, we also need to look at new business models, especially for making young farmers. This morning's session, we talked about making young people want to farm. I think we have a lot of young people that would like to farm, but they have not the opportunity because the business models look like what they look like today. It's hard to get the land, it's hard to get access to finance. So I think we need to find new business models, which could be innovation, maybe not in a need of big finance support, but a new mindset and new knowledge for that.
Excellent. Diego, I think we've answered your challenge a little bit, because at the beginning you asked us to sort of think more broadly what could be done, and we've just heard there from Elisabeth and other members of the panel. It isn't just funding, it's support, it's access to new tailored advisory support, it's helping new paradigms, new mind shifts, etc. So Diego, let me invite you to just wrap up our conversation.
No, thank you very much, Tasmin. And I said before that we have a strategy since 2016, and we want to modernize this strategy. So next year we are supposed to approve the strategy in the second quarter of 2026. So I am pleased to announce that we're launching a public survey open to all today on the new EU RNI strategy approach for agriculture, forestry and rural areas. I suppose you can see the QR code behind me on the screen. It will also be available on Europe website at the exhibition tables as well here at the conference, to make things easier, and on the bookmarks that we will hand off to you to take home. Please help us to spread the message. The survey is open until 25th January 2026, and your input will be essential. You listened to me before. We might have more money from 2028 onwards, and we don't want to build it in the closed doors in our office. We want to build it with you, with farmers. So please bring your input. Use this open call that we're doing today. And again, that's what I wanted to convey as a final message from my side.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, can I invite a warm round of applause for this panel?